Welcome to another episode of The Human Root. I'm very excited today as we have here with us Rosemary Tsai. She's the director of KPC Herbs, an herbal manufacturer, no, an herb manufacturer based out of Taiwan that has passed down for over 5 generations. They have been established since 1892 for over 100 years and are known in the industry for their herbal quality. Now, Rose is a very impressive individual as she's a female leader in the industry. She also teaches herbal medicine and herb quality on the side. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to have Rose here today. Hi, Rose.
Hi, Kai. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's really exciting to be here and to be able to share with you and talk with you.
Yeah, I'm so interested in your background because as someone who is fifth generation in your family, what was that like growing up?
Oh, it's a lot of pressure for sure. I started off my career actually being an educator. I was actually a high school math teacher. Never thought about I would be teaching herbs, 10, 15 years later down the line. When I quit teaching, I thought I was done. But then I got brought in again to teach this industry, to teach the TCM industry about herbal safety and about herbal quality controls. The standards in the US for herbs are very inconsistent and it varies very drastically. So for me, it is important to share that thought process, to share what students and what practitioners and what teachers should be looking for in terms of quality and safety. After I left teaching, I went into working for tech savvy companies, like Infosys, partnership with SAP and Oracle. But my parents said it probably is a good idea at a point in time where I come back and try and take over this family legacy and to help continue this family legacy. So, it is a lot of pressure. It's not something that's easy.
Yeah, and how long ago was it when you took over?
It was back in 2017 when I came back to KPC,
Mm,
and it was just a lot of learning, a lot of different aspects of things. I was non-operation person, obviously, being a director of operation, being a general manager. You have to understand all aspects of the business.
mm,
Something I joke about sometimes is people ask me, "What do I do here?" And I said, "Well, I do the packaging here. I go to the warehouse and I pack boxes, right?" You start from
mhm.
the ground up trying to figure out what is the problem, what is the solution, or if there is a solution to solve problems to make my family company better and stronger for the next generations.
Yeah, and when you came back, I mean, it sounds like you didn't really expect to come back to the family business so quickly. What were your thoughts when you were asked to come back?
Well, I didn't expect to come back so quickly because, TCM industry is really interesting, right? It's viewed as a old industry, not so exciting, very boring for lack of better terms because it's the
Mhm,
word in itself traditional Chinese medicine. I was working with tech companies, so for me it was more exciting. You get to think out of the box, you get to do things differently, marketings, operations, all type of stuff. Coming back here was kind of a drag in the feet, but because I was back here, at that time I also happened to meet my now husband. He also said, if it's so boring, then this is an opportunity for change. You can make the
mm,
change. Most people don't get to make a change in a company, right? Like most people just do as they're told. So this is an
mhm.
opportunity for you to do that, for you to expand, for you to make it different. So why not? And if it doesn't work, right, 2 or 3 years down the line, you're like, maybe this is still something that I'm not passionate about. Well,
Mhm.
then maybe I can sad, but maybe I can leave and go do something else, right?
Yeah, and since you joined, you said it was in 2017
Correct.
that you came back to the industry.
Yes.
What was that like? What was the industry like back in 2017? What was the acceptance level of, traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese herbs?
In 2017, the acceptance level of traditional Chinese medicine is, I would say, kind of banging your head against a wall. People were not as acceptance. They're like, what is this brown stuff that I'm taking and so bitter? And people
Mhm,
always ask, like, who would even take this kind of stuff? Or you get conceptions of, oh, it's just trees and branches in your backyard that you cook in a bathtub, right? And it's like, no, 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 no. There's more science and technology behind this, which is the reason why I started to want to educate people and share with people. Um, Good thing happened since COVID. I guess pros and cons since COVID. Since 2020, people know, vaccine is obviously helpful to fight COVID, but at the same time, people are understanding, you know, there is another side of the world, like the Eastern medicine, right? The traditional Chinese herb that can help you build your immune system. So for that, it has opened up to more people to trying to figure out, trying to want to learn what is this traditional Chinese medicine that may be able to alleviate some of the cancer issues and problems or side effects, or to be able to build your immune systems beyond just, from the ground up, beyond just let's take a Western medicine and solve the problem, right? It's not solving the symptom at that point, but it's solving the problem from the beginning, from your roots, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I remember one of the first conversation that we had, Rose, was back in 2020
I
or
know.
around then. And that was when COVID, was happening. I remember I was graduating from business school, and we had a conversation very casually about the industry. And you did mention at the time that that's where you saw, a lot more people actually trying
Mm.
uh, Chinese herbs because it's seen as a little bit more holistic. Are there particular herbs that you thought was very interesting to see, in terms of trend?
Yeah, I guess I'll first say it's pros and cons, right? When there is a
Mm,
trend. So, for example, 酸枣仁 and 酸枣仁汤, so the herb 酸枣仁 jujube has been known to help with sleeps, right? You can
mhm,
imagine how many people are lacking sleep because you can't go anywhere to exercise or do anything anymore. So you're basically cooped up at home. So
mm,
酸枣仁 is one of the herbs that has been known to help with sleep. It has
yeah.
skyrocketed in price. So what does that
Mm,
do in our industry? Kind of hurts our industry in some sense because
mhm,
now everybody wants 酸枣仁, right? Without knowing that
mm,
酸枣仁 is just one of the herbs that help with sleep. This is not the only herb. And because of
mm,
that lack of understanding, it has boomed people's interest in using 酸枣仁 to help them with sleep. But again, like I said, the cons part is now in traditional Chinese medicine, a lot of companies are not manufacturing 酸枣仁汤 or not manufacturing
yes,
酸枣仁, uh,
yes.
not manufacturing 酸枣仁um, because the price itself has, I'm not even joking, has increased by 1,000%. Like every month there's like 200 or 300% of increase. You just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, that's really what I heard too, where I've spoken to a few founders of companies who are looking at sleep formula, and their scientific team will often say, "Hey, 酸枣仁 or jujube seed, really good to add to the formula," and then they will go on to check the price and decide, "Wow, there's no way this could be
No.
part of the raw material because then your consumer will be paying a very high price, right?"
Right.
Um, and that's interesting because I also remember for something like 酸枣仁, like jujube seed, or even ginseng, um, the herb quality, it really varies a lot, right?
Yes.
And I think that's one of the um, earlier conversation we had, which is that in KPC you're known for your herb quality. Can you tell us a little bit more what makes a high quality herb versus low quality herb, and how KPC ensures that you only get, and also you come out with the best herbal granules?
Okay, so I'm not a chemist, so I wouldn't know, but I know I can share with you and talk about with you what we do to ensure that we have the highest quality of herbs. So I'll
Hmm.
take 酸枣仁 for example. One of the biggest issues that we have with 酸枣仁 is that last year when I was back in Taiwan for maternity leave and I was discussing it with my brother. Again, this is a family business, so my boss is my brother, about what is going on with 酸枣仁. And he said, every batch we get, every sample we get, and when we examine it, it's adulterated 酸枣仁. This is not jujuberry. It looks like it, but it's not.
Mm,
So some of
mm,
the things that people, general consumers may not be aware of is not just, I just go to a farmer's market, let's say, and say, this is jujuberry. Let me chop it up, let me cook it and sell it to a 酸枣仁, right? At $100
mm,
per 100 gram. That's not how it works.
mm,
When we source a raw material, we really look at it. We take a look at, okay, first, you have physical examination, just like when you go to a farmer's market, right? Does it look like
Mm-hmm.
酸枣仁? Does it have a reminiscence of 酸枣仁? But it goes
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. It's very, very techy or very, very scientific. We put it underneath the microscope to have slices of 酸枣仁and say, hey, does a pattern, for example, does a pattern go like this? Oh, does it have a pattern like this? Because every fruit, every vegetable, every herb has its own patterns, has its own, I would say, look for the
Mm-hmm.
herbs. But that's
Yeah.
still not enough in this industry. You really want to make sure you qualify your herb and quantify your herbs, right? So
Mm.
qualifying your herbs, that means you want to see if this herb is the correct herb. Does it have the right fingerprint? So we have scientific, we use a machine, it's going a little bit more techy, but it's more TLC machines where we look at the pattern, we look at the fingerprints, we have reference samples to show, hey, if it's supposed to peak at a certain point, does it have it? Does it look like it? So
Mm.
it's really taking it into almost like a chemist class, right?
Mm.
It needs to have a specific fingerprint, just like you and me. If I put my
Yeah.
fingerprint in a system, it will only read Rosemary Tsai. It's not going to read Kai, right? It's just not
Yeah.
going to work. Kai is going to have a separate set of fingerprint. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing with 酸枣仁. They have its own fingerprint. But of course, that's
Mm.
just qualifying the herb to say, yes, it's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's right, but you now got to quantify it. So what that means
Mm.
is you got to see if it has this active ingredient. Because 酸枣 is supposed to be, one of the things it's known for is supposed to help you sleep, right?
Mm.
So that's what it means. It's supposed to have its active ingredients to be able to help you sleep. If there's no
Yeah.
active ingredient within it, then it doesn't work. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what kind of the things that we take a look at, just physical appearances, but also microscope and analysis, and then TLC and other instruments that we use within our chemistry labs to really
Yeah.
ensure that the herb is correct. So that's why it's so
Wow.
fascinating, but it's not just. Again, like I said, people still come to me. Oh, it's just branch and branches that you go to farmers market and let's cook it in a bathtub. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very interesting, right? You're saying that to me, like the two jujubes date could look exactly the same from the outside,
Yes.
but there's so much more to determining whether this is actually a high quality jujube with, with the right active ingredients in it, or like a low quality one where you can consume as many as you can and it's
Yes.
actually has no effect on you.
Exactly. That's how it works.
Wow. And I think because I remember it's very interesting that you mentioned your brother talking about the samples that he rejected, because I also recall some stats where like 50 to 70% of some of the samples that he could get rejected, right? Even
Yes.
before uh, they get to be processed.
Yes, before everything is processed, so of course, right? It's again helping people understand how this industry really work and how this herb really is helpful if it has the right quality control, right?
Yeah.
So not because we not only do a sample from, let's say we do source most of our stuff from China. So just
Mm.
because we get a sample, it doesn't mean the incoming batch is going to be as beautiful as it seems for the sample. Think about it. If I'm going to
Mm.
send you a sample, I'm not just going to send you some random sample. I'm going to send you the best quality sample, right, for you to examine,
Mm.
right? But then
Mm.
when the batch comes, it may have some variation and some spectrums of it. So that's where you kind of need to go and examine it. You need to examine the whole
Wow.
batch before you put it into production, right? Because once you
Mm.
produce it, you're already putting in additional resources. So before we put
Yeah.
additional resources, we better make sure that this is a right herb. It has the right efficacy and it has the um, right efficacy for the herbs itself.
Yeah. And I think going further down, so now that you've gotten the herbs and you have to process it, what I understand is KPC also has a very traditional but also yet high-tech way to process these herbs. They are very different from the industry, right? Just
Yes.
zooming out a little, what I understand is that in KPC, all your herbs are processed so that the active ingredients are actually in their natural ratio, versus someone in the industry who could be, let's take ginseng again as an example. Someone could just be pumping ginsenoside and
Yes.
saying that, hey, my product has 3,000 mg of ginsenoside, but that's not the same as even let's call it 500 mg from KPC. Can you expand and elaborate a little bit about
Of
your
course.
extraction? Yeah.
So our extraction process is full spectrum. So what does that mean, right? Because people's like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand what you mean by full spectrum. So just exactly what you said. There are a lot of Western companies, and this is again coming from the Western methodology, right? I'm not saying it's
Mm-hmm.
right, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not right or wrong, to be quite honest. But just like you said, people will pump. They know ginseng has this active ingredient. It has just I'll use 酸枣仁 going back to it. Let's say 酸枣仁. It has a sleeping agent. It has a sleeping active ingredient that can help people sleep. So they will do a single spectrum of extraction where they just extract out what is necessary to make it very high or very intense to show that this herb is effective in helping you with sleep. But there are so many other stuff with 酸枣仁 that comes it, right? It not only helps you with sleep, but maybe it has a calming effect. Again, I'm not a practitioner, but it may have a calming effect. Maybe it can help reduce stress. Maybe it can
Mm-hmm.
help with all different type of aspects of your health and body, not just with sleep. So when we do full spectrum of extraction, that means we cook it in a big pot and we extract out of all the active ingredients and cooking it the traditional way, like how is traditional made, how herbs are made. Basically, cook the whole thing in a pot and you drink the whole soup, right? So now it's like cooking the whole pot, you put it into granulation and you make the granule. So that's what it's like, the full spectrum of decoction. It's just not just focus on one aspect of an herb and then making sure that we just extract out that single aspect or single known aspect of the herb. That is more of a Western philosophy, right? If you look at
Mm-hmm.
Tylenol, if you look at Advils, they are like that. A, B, and C compounded together, we know to help you reduce your fever. That's how Western medicines are made. But Chinese medicine shouldn't be made that way. And that's how our herbs and formulas are very different too, because it has to deal with the way that we manufacture our formula. It's not compounded single herbs. Because a lot of companies, to save costs and to save
Yeah.
time, again, it's not right, it's not wrong, but you compound it, right? I take 酸枣仁, I take herb A, B, C, and D, and they're all manufactured separately, and then I compound them together and sell it to you. But that's not how
Yeah.
KPC does it. KPC does it, our manufacturer does it, like cooking the whole thing together. So there
Yeah.
is more effective and there are different efficacies to ensure that when you're taking it, it's really effective and it's good for your bodies.
Yeah, I really like how, there is so much respect around, how the herbs should be treated
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that you get the highest quality. Um, Actually, I'm really curious when we spoke that was in 2020,
I know,
three
almost
years
4 years
ago,
ago.
4 years ago, when we first, and to give our audience some context, right? We are actually partners in this
Mm-hmm.
industry, right?
Correct.
I am the co-founder of Reprise. We put
Yes.
KPC herbs into gummies.
Yes.
And when we first brought this idea to you, what was your initial thought, initial reaction to that?
To my initial thought, my initial reaction, wow, I never thought about the ideas. I actually, at that time, everybody's now is the gummies, right? Gummies get the term out from marijuana mixed gummies, right? That's what people have. So for me, I always have the idea like, hey, we can maybe mix our herbs into gummies. But of course, KPC's strong suit is at manufacturing, is making the best possible product. Because we've been here, just as you mentioned, 5 generations. That is our strong suit. Our strong suit is on manufacturing product with the highest qualities for our partners and also for ourselves. And for me, when you brought the idea to me, I was like, perfect. Someone can do the marketing side of it, which is that side of stuff that it's not my strong point. My side is I'm more, I guess, lack of a better term, linear person. Like, let me solve the problem. Give me the problem and I can just keep solving and let's figure it out. Because I came from a mathematic background, right?
Yeah.
I went to school for math. I graduated as a math major and I taught
Mm,
math. So my thinking is sometimes very linear. So for me, when
mm,
you brought the idea, I was like, perfect. Let me create a gummy and let's have Reprise sell it. They can figure it out and that's their brand. And I'm happy just manufacture the gummy. And I thought to myself too, wow, this is how this industry can be different. Someone came with a different idea. It's not just brown herbs that are to be taken with like a shot of alcohol and so bitter and kind of in some sense sometimes so nasty to take, right? It's something
Yeah.
different. Think
Mm,
outside the box, outside beyond the normal products, because there's a
mm,
lot of things that we can do with it. So it was really exciting project for me personally.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I really like that we got to work with you too because we still, get the highest quality herb, and now it's in a form where it's easy for someone to try them.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and just zooming back out to your background, right? Having been, in the industry for since 2017, um, what have you seen any, interesting, inspiring story around herbal medicine? So maybe someone who has, experienced herbal medicine and see a change in themselves.
I think a lot of people have. People who believe in traditional Chinese medicine are people who have taken Chinese medicines and or willing to try and notice a difference.
Mm,
KPC Herb is actually in one of the two top hospitals in the nation. They are in an integrated program.
yeah.
So just to give kind of a view, in Asia, right, most of the hospital, I would say 95% of hospital has a choice. What does that
Mm,
look like? That means you have a Western medicine section and a traditional Chinese medicine section. So you can
mm,
choose, their system allow them to choose the type of doctors you want to see because it's a
mm,
different philosophy and it's a different belief, right? What can help you,
mhm,
right? So these two hospitals also integrate in a sense that there is a pharmacy for traditional Chinese medicine, and then there's also the Western medicine. One of them is a cancer hospital actually located in the East Coast. So
mm,
for privacy purposes, we can't mention names, but
mhm,
they are essentially taking our tablets and giving
mm,
to cancer patients to help reduce the side effects from chemotherapy. So
mm,
patients, so for example, one of the things that most common things that cancer patients suffers from is after the chemotherapy, they have a very hard time with their digestive system to go to the bathroom, right?
mm,
So we give them 保和丸, we give them 麻子仁丸 to help them with their digestion movements, to help them alleviate all that, lack of better term, toxins that they're getting from the chemotherapies. So they're
mm,
very, very constipated. So by taking this herb, they see a difference in their body. So it's
yeah.
really helping to understand like, hey, these two types of extreme opposite medicine should be working together. There are
Mm,
more people since COVID that wants to research about different type of herbs and what their effects are and how it can be helpful. There are push in Congress. One of the biggest things I've seen, I actually, before I came back in 2017, I actually worked for KPC like 10 years prior to that for a year. And then I came
mm,
back, right? Now, acupuncture, it's part of
mm,
TCM. You can actually see acupuncturists and it's part of your healthcare program. That's a
mm,
big change. It used to be all out of pocket, right?
yeah.
Chiropractor was part of it. So why can't acupuncture be out of it? Right. So
Mm,
now it's part of it. So we're pushing for there are Congress, there are association pushing for herbal medicines to be part of the Medicare program. I mean,
mm,
it's a long road and it's not going to be easy, but that is so great to see, right? We're pushing towards the right directions. We're giving patients, right? It's not about KPC or it's not about KPC selling more herbs. Of course, we love to, but it's also why my family were in this business to begin with, is pushing to give patients the options of medicines that can be helpful for the overall well-being. It's not just
mm,
let me throw a pill at you and then let's call it a day, right? It's let's
mhm,
solve the problem in your body. Let's help you build the overall immunity in your system so that
mm.
you can take better care of yourself and not have to go back and be reliant on Western medications.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that resonates with a few other guests that I've spoken to, right? Where we're seeing a trend where Eastern and Western, like Eastern medicine is not so much an alternative as
Mm-hmm.
much as now they are more integrative, right? It's an integrated approach that works very well.
Yes.
Um, Having seen this, where do you see traditional Chinese medicine or Chinese herbs going, in the future, and KPC's role in this vision?
Where does it go? I know I have a feeling where it's going. I mean, it's pros and cons for everything. I have a feeling because right now in the US, I can speak for the US. I know US is the only country right now that doesn't view Chinese medicines as a medicine. It
Mm,
only views traditional Chinese medicines as a dietary supplement, which is why general consumer does come to me hoping that they can buy from me. But unfortunately, we only sell to licensed practitioners because we
mm,
really only believes in herbs have to be prescribed specifically for your body type and symptoms to ensure that it's right for you, right? So
mm,
because of this, I feel like the direction is there's going to be people want to view this as medicine, but if you view this as medicine, there's also going to be more regulations, right?
mm,
There's going to be more regulations. It's going to be harder to sell these products just per se on Amazon, right? You can't go on Amazon and
mm,
hope to buy KPC herbs. You're not going to see it.
mm,
So it is going to be harder in terms of regulation because FDA will come and regulate our products. You have to show efficacy, you have to show your standards, you have to show quality control. But that's
mm,
also good for KPC. Why? Because we are already doing it, right? There are
mm,
companies out there that are not having that don't do any of this. So of course they're like, no, 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 we don't want this to happen. I just wanted to be able to source from XYZ company and then put it into capsules and sell it to you. Well, there's no
mm,
regulations in that. Where does your herb come from? What does it come from? Does it use? Did you test it?
mm,
Is there high levels of heavy metal? Is there high levels of pesticides? All these are questions you should be asking, right? For someone from a company that should be selling this. One of
mm,
the changes that we also see is what we call the FISMA. So it's basically like a program that they're reviewing to say, hey, if I'm an importer, just like KPC, are you reviewing your vendors to ensure that do you have a program and are you reviewing to ensure that the product you source are
mm.
of certain standards, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not afraid, or KPC is not afraid of that, and our manufacturer is not afraid of that. Why are we not afraid or concerned? Well, because we're
Mm,
already following the standard. Yes, it's going to be a lot more paperwork on me and my team, right? No
yeah.
doubt. More work, harder to import stuff, and may actually limit some herbs because if it's a low selling herbs, then it's not worth it resource wise, right? For companies
Mm,
to register for the certification. But at
mm.
the same time, it filters out and regulates out companies who aren't doing the due diligence to make sure these products are safe and effective for their patients.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. As someone who is also, sourcing within the industry, I realize that there is in fact a lot of sources of herbal extracts, right? Like today, if I really want to go find a ginseng extract to put into a
Mhm.
gummy or jujube seed, I think you can find many sources. Whether that's, of a certain standard, that's not yet very regulated, right?
Mhm.
And I think the other insight I'm taking from your perspective is also really interesting to me, which is like there might be a little bit of disconnect between the required qualification and what consumers or even industry players might be interested in, right? For
Yes.
instance, when you have a jujube seed extract, you typically go through all these tests and you have a certificate of analysis, right? This
Mhm.
certificate of analysis would tell you all the different, like you mentioned, heavy metal, pesticide, right? All the different quality controls that you have in place. That is generally not really reviewed for something
Mhm.
that's in the market. And what is reviewed in the market for qualification are things like, is it USDA organic? Is it gluten free? Is it,
Mhm.
uh, uh, is it vegan, right? And things like this. So I do think that's a really interesting perspective where if as the industry matures, that more attention is paid to also what really matters, which is the quality of, your herb.
Right. And I do get that question. I would say, oh, 90% of the time, is your product organic? And I'm thinking like, why does organic really matter? Like if you go through the testing, right? Organic, it's like the false understanding and perceptions. Again, it's all go back to because traditional Chinese medicine is viewed as a dietary supplement. So those things, right? Organic, not GMO, those are the things that people are looking at, vegan or not vegan. But if you really think about it, right? Okay, so organic, what does I always tell people, what does organic really means, right? You're thinking organic guarantees quality. Not true. You're thinking organic doesn't have pesticides. False. Organic has pesticides. It's just a certain pesticide that is qualified as organic, right? But if you're not doing the pesticide testing, then it really is no use, right? So we do pesticide residual testings. It's like as a farmer spraying heavy levels of pesticides to just grow this herb so beautifully to give you a false assumption like, oh my God, this herb is so pretty. But do you know how much pesticide they actually put in it? Right. So it's that, I guess, a lack of understanding. But again, it's also because sadly right now, traditional Chinese medicines is not qualified as a medicine. It's viewed as a dietary supplement.
Okay, and one last question for you, Rose.
Yes.
As someone who's so deep in the industry and has a family that has been running this for over 5 generations, what is a piece of advice that you would give for someone who's starting out, traditional Chinese medicine?
Oh, one piece of advice I will always say, work with a practitioner that is licensed. Okay, so this is again going back to some states, the licensing is very iffy in different states. Some states actually requires a license, some states actually do not. But if your state does require acupuncturists to have a license, work with an acupuncturist that really understands herbs. They have study herbs. Maybe they have an herbology classes to really help you. The herbs that you're taking, is it the correct herbs for you? And I always like to use like you mentioned, like an analogies, right? Always easy to use is if I say you have a fever and I give you Robitussin. We all know Robitussin is for coughing. Is it going to help you reduce fever? The answer is no, right? Just like if you're coughing and you're like, oh my God, I have dry throat, I keep coughing, I give you Tylenol. You think Tylenol is going to help you with your coughing? It's not, right? It's going to only help you reduce fever and aches. So going back to traditional Chinese medicine, it's the same way. It's not just herbs, it's not just branch and leaves, there is a reason behind why these herbs were compounded or put together to create this medicine. Go find a licensed practitioner that can help prescribe you the right herbs. And as a general consumer, you should ask the questions. Do you have a license in acupuncture? Did you study herbology? What type of herbs do you use? And how do you know the herbs that you're giving me has gone through a certain standard testing? And we have an herbalist that works with us. She is very, very extremely knowledgeable in herbal medicines. Like whatever symptoms you tell her, she's look at your tongue, she give you pulse, she can tell you what herbs it is. She can tell you why this herb shouldn't be taken if it has interactions with Western medicine. That's why it's so important to know someone or to go to an acupuncturist that understand how herbs work. Because you don't want to just take anything, because it may have interaction with whatever Western medicines you're taking. And that is going to cause you to have side effects, right? And that's not good for you. So that will be my piece of advice for someone who's starting TCM new, who's looking to try TCM out, is just really to find a source that can really help you, give you the confidence that the herbs you're taking is right, and the herbs that you're taking is of highest quality.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rose. This was
Of course.
super useful, super insightful session. Again, Rose is the director of KPC Herbs, and she's 5th generation in her family business to be running this herbal company, manufacturing company. And for anyone who would like to find out more, feel free to find them on kpcherbs.com, or you can also find them on Instagram at KPC Herbs.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank,
Kai.
thanks, Rose.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Okay, let me stop recording.